If this title or gameplay footage already seems familiar to you, you've probably been watching my show for a while. It was a good while back I received an email about a browser-based game that combined Metroidvania gameplay with MMO mechanics, with roguelike randomly generated stages, and a permadeath system. I was definitely intrigued, and although I gave it a good amount of attention in a browser-based episode, the game was still very much in beta, and I knew a Steam Greenlight launch was on the way. So now that the game's on Steam Greenlight, and has been for a while, let's take a fuller look at this game. If I can get far enough, that is. This is the MMO Grinder, and it's time to look at StarBreak. Not to be confused with the recently out of beta and officially launched Starbound, StarBreak is everything I just described. A Metroidvania-style MMO roguelike, featuring randomized levels and a permadeath system. This also isn't the first browser-based MMO roguelike to do this, as Realm of the Mad God got on-again, off-again attention. Though that game was a top-down gauntlet-style shooter, the games do share quite a few similar mechanics. Rightfully so, as one of the developers that worked on Realm of the Mad God moved on to make StarBreak. I kinda mistook that for the entire development team making StarBreak in my browser-based episode, so consider that my 7-month late oops apology. If you're ready to see how unforgiving this game can be, let's begin. StarBreak goes for a rather simple 2D art style, which kept the need for processing power down, and allowed this to be easily played in browsers before its Steam launch. This means that everything is highly stylized, but that isn't always a good thing. Given that the game's levels are procedurally generated while keeping with a set theme, things can quickly end up looking disjointed. Characters themselves look alright, but have very few animation frames, looking especially choppy in their idle animations and noticeable most in the Ironclad. There is a staggering amount of attention to detail here, though, and really, looking around at the environments and sprites can surprise you. Lights on your storage chest will light up depending on if and where you have equipment stored in there. Bosses can telegraph their attacks with changes to their look, and you can find characters from other series scattered around the hub world. In the missions themselves, you'll find that there's a lot of visual clutter from enemies, overlapping each other, overlapping the background decorations, and concealing spawns and traps. Or even other players will block out projectiles and make it really hard to focus on anything, and oftentimes the damage just ends up feeling cheap. There were a lot of times where members of Grindstone would decry, "Oh come on, how did that hit me?" or just exclaiming in confusion when they suddenly took damage from something they couldn't see. There's an entire level that got a rather disparaging nickname from us, and it tends to be the biggest offender for visual clutter and flooding the screen with so much noise that it's just hard to focus on. This will even affect people that aren't colorblind, so imagine the world of fun I kept getting into when I couldn't tell what was an allied projectile and what was an enemy's hit you for half your health bullet. With enemy and allied projectiles displayed with absolutely no mechanical manner, like a different color, a weird flashing effect, or any other indicator to separate the bad crap from flying around the screen from the good crap from flying around the screen, it made half my decisions wondering if I'll take damage from the thing that's bounding around near me, and then making those decisions a split second too late. Once again, adding in the fact that allied sprites can hide these projectiles, and you have a recipe for yelling at this game quite a bit. The music in this game is a rare treat because it's simply amazing. The tracks will vary greatly in tone and genre, even instrumentation, some sticking with sci-fi synth, others going all out into guitar rock, or some combination of them all. It's a great soundtrack to listen to while playing, if the game's sound work will let you listen to it. Because this is some serious hit-and-miss sound work. If you were running around on your own, you might think it's fine, and many parts of it are. Even then, though, some cracks might begin to show, in some generally odd choices, specifically the health pickup. It's distinct, certainly, and I've learned to breathe a sigh of relief when I hear it passing through a pile of loot. But there's something off about it. It seriously sounds like some kind of text blip, the kind of thing that your phone or an instant messenger program would use to let you know you have a new message. For a good while, I had to stop myself from checking Skype or Discord every time I picked up a health kit, and I still occasionally find myself glancing down at the taskbar. It's off-sounding to say the least, or maybe I'm alone in this, I don't know. What's most glaring, though, is the hit confirmation sound. Again, on its own, it's okay. It's a deep, punchy crunch noise to let you know that you've impacted the enemy. The issue really comes when you have more people hitting their targets on the screen at once, and it becomes very apparent during boss fights, where this simple crunch combines into being this awful compounded grinding noise that sounds like your speakers are about to explode. It's absolutely grating, and unless you drop down the game's sound levels quite a bit, expect to do quite a bit of shouting over that noise if you happen to be in a group call. I honestly don't know why we need to hear it for every player in the room, and it feels like something that should have been addressed or ironed out in the beta. Or people just really like the sound of nuts and bolts jamming up a diesel engine. You basically start this game right away. Pressing play will put you directly into the game, and you don't even need to sign up to play it. Though it helps to do so if you want to keep most of your stuff through multiple computers and you're tired of being known as New Spark. You start by escaping a ship under attack and playing it as a class that doesn't exist within the main game. It does serve to help you with the basic nuances of control, the combat, as well as your story setup, as no matter how well you perform, the ship that you're on is destroyed after you take down the final challenge and your character is killed, introducing the game's main mechanic and class-changing concept. The game itself is rather basic. While there are only 4 classes, known as shells, there is no starting character customization and no immediate class choices, as first, everyone starts out as the Wildfire shell. You can unlock additional classes by gaining experience points to gain levels, which you'll gain the most of upon your shell's death. The Wildfire is your basic gun-wielding soldier, with the ability to mount a booster pack to dash in different directions by throwing yourself away from where you fire it, and to equip grenades. It's probably my favorite shell and unquestionably the easiest one to use. The second shell that you'll unlock is known as the Duskwing, and uses a blade attached to a long chain to deal damage, while throwing boomerang shurikens as their secondary with a simple dash mechanic. They use a Sonic the Hedgehog-style spinning jump attack, and the shell is a dangerous combination of close-range, high-frequent damage, and squishiness, so it's recommended to skilled players. The third unlocked shell is known as the Ironclad, which is a hulking character focusing on tanking with its shield and hitting with its massive maul, while getting a charge mechanic in place of a dash. Ducking with this shell will pull out a useful projectile-deflecting shield, but there are many shots that you can't block with the shield. The armor and HP boost alone will make this a decent shell for those who find avoiding damage a bit difficult. The final shell unlocked is known as the Fabricator, whose main weapon is a projectile that you hold down to mark distance before releasing, which will then summon drones and turrets to fight with you, and summoning platforms instead of dashing. It seems to be a popular shell for those looking to play something unique, and those who like to make other things do the fighting for them. Each of these classes have a slightly different take on the same combat system, which uses 7 directional attacks, with straight down being excluded, while using special abilities and mechanics to navigate the level, dodge attacks, build platforms, or do damage. Unfortunately, as mentioned before, there is no customization to speak of, outside of a very minor thing we'll talk about later, so you can easily lose your character in the middle of the action. Many times we decry the fact that we thought we were the other Wildfire or Ironclad. Even though the game does mark you with a special ring, it doesn't seem to help much when combat becomes such a cluster. Fitting in with what we said earlier about visual clutter, it can make the game's combat feel clunky and cheap. Perhaps one of the largest annoyances being instant death pits, high damage to possible one-hit kill boss attacks, and given that your character flies back from even the lightest hit, you can get easily pinballed into one of those traps. The other major issues is the game has a permadeath mechanic, where you can store some gear away, but when you die, you lose everything you had on you, including any upgrades that you've gained while you're playing. You keep only the in-game currency, or EC, that you found. Each area of the game is separated by stages, described with difficulty levels like low, medium, high, and very high, though I prefer to describe them by the upgrade tiers of Mark 1 through Mark 4 that they drop. In order to upgrade your shell stats, you need these tiered random drops from enemies and chests that'll appear in each stage. These will upgrade your max HP, ammo, damage, armor, speed, jump height, crit chance, and crit damage. Each can only be upgraded a certain amount of times with each tier, and if you fill out your stats in one tier, you'll earn an upgraded Mark grade. For example, grind out Fire Force enough to max out the first tier of Mark 1, and you'll be granted Mark 2 status. A nice thing is that if you don't want to grind out Fire Forest anymore, but still haven't completed the first tier, if you pick up a higher tier upgrade from a more difficult stage, it'll still count towards your Mark 1 tier. While it's possible to get upgrades on any stage as long as the upgrade is high enough in rank, it's clearly more dangerous to do so, as no matter how good you are at the game, it still follows an RPG mentality, meaning that your skill will be no match for your upgrades and gear. Being able to dodge and attack flawlessly is meaningless if it still takes you 20 seconds to kill a basic monster, or any mistakes you end up making will take away half to all of your health in any later dungeon. This permadeath mechanic, and the fact that you lose all of these tiers upon death, means that you'll be seeing that first area, Fire Forest, over and over again. This problem could have been alleviated if they allowed you to keep some of your progress once unlocking all of the Mark 1 upgrades. But since they don't, you best enjoy that same mission on repeat. The game claims to alleviate this by offering up a small shop to give some basic starting gear for any EC that you've gathered. But your money is better saved elsewhere, and the shop contents can be uselessly random. The first zone of the game, and the only Mark 1 upgrade zone, is the already mentioned Fire Forest. It's a pretty simple mission and lays a good groundwork on how the game will play, with fairly simple enemies, and a tank and spank mid-boss, as well as a final boss that starts as a leaping crab monster that then learns to fly and bombards you with fireballs. The shame of it is that the boss of this mission ends up being an incredibly tedious fight. It's not difficult, mind, but it has a fighting arena that just seems to actively work against you more than anything. Should you defeat the boss, you'll be given a loot chest containing several upgrade modules, some gear, though it quite often won't be for your class, and keys to access the next levels. You'll also earn access to the elite version of Fire Forest, which is also free to enter, and greatly boosts the amount of upgrades and gear that you'll find, for having to deal with much harder enemies. Elite versions of each stage exist, but require you to have beaten the non-elite version before you can unlock their portals personally. The second set of zones containing the Mark II upgrades are known as Fungal Cave and the Vanquished, respectively. This is where some of the more annoying mechanics can come into play, and the visual clutter once again affects your ability to ready the situation. Many times enemies in Fungal Cave blend into the background decoration and makes it feel like you're taking cheap damage instead of facing actual challenges. Fungal Cave's boss, a giant worm, has that aforementioned one-hit kill mechanic, which is a real cheap shot to those who don't know it's coming. It's even possible to spawn directly into it from the above room when joining the fight when it's already in progress. Vanquished features a slow-moving platform mechanic that hovers over a sea of sharp crystals, causing possible severe damage and backtracking to even the most simple of falling mistakes or knockbacks. Vanquished features a mid-boss that creates fake copies of himself and fires shots all over the place. The boss of Vanquished, being the easier of the two bosses, starts out with some enemy spawning side vehicles and a massive spaceship with arms to take down, while reinforcements will show up on a regular. Completing either Vanquished or Fungal Cave will earn you the keys for Tier 3 levels, Underground Base and the Strands. Underground Base is categorized by a lot of tough enemies and carries a military complex theme throughout, as well as a maze-like setting with teleporters and rooms that'll lock you into wave spawn fights. It features the roguelike favorite mid-boss that starts out large and splits into smaller versions of itself as you fight it, while the final boss is a giant computer monitor that fires shots, drops bombs, and summons enemies. As for Strands, we don't go to Strands. Strands is Ravenholm. Strands takes place above an instant death pit containing respawning plants that fire bouncing spores, platforms that will try to eat you, and given the knockback on damage, you'll likely lose your shell very easily. I have lost many a good shell to some outright inescapable BS in Strands. And while I've seen the mid-boss of Strands and its horrible plant and flying enemy spamming nonsense, I have not seen the stage boss, and I don't want to. Strands is a garbage stage and it needs to burn in hell. At Tier 4 you can check out the even tougher but slightly less BS areas with the even more maze-like Graveyard and Temple of the Lost, neither of which I've been fully prepared to encounter without risk of sudden and near-instant shell death, so I can't tell you too much info on their bosses, but both stages are laden with tough enemies and traps, so make sure you have good gear, full Mark III upgrades, or a fantastic group to leech off of if you want to take them on. The final area in the game, known as Star Cathedral, requires the entire game's community to offer up keys to open it. It's a major event to take on, and death is almost guaranteed, as this stage shows no forgiveness. I never saw the inside personally playing the game, but there's videos of that nightmare hellscape on YouTube, and I'm not about to steal someone's footage just to show you, so look it up if you need to know. One final note of interest is that the stages each have small hidden areas that contain chests with tons of money and upgrades for that tier. Keep an eye out for suspicious walls and doors as you travel throughout, or keep an eye on what the group is doing. provided they're being cooperative at the moment. Those of you familiar with Trove will get how this works right away. StarBreak has no party system to speak of. If you want to play with friends, just join the same level that they're on. Anyone that joins within a certain amount of time will be thrown into the same instance of that level. Though usually you can get into the same instance, joining later or getting separated from that group can also get you thrown into a fresh instance. As mentioned before, anyone can spend a key to open the level door for a small amount of time, and anyone else can enter it without using one of their keys. This means you could easily tag along to higher difficulty areas so long as someone unlocks the door for you, but with the way this game plays, that might be a mistake. If you end up lagging behind, you'll find that your group simply vanishes, which turns the entire stage into a solo instance. Given that a lot of the game isn't designed to be played solo, with all the potential for unforgiving and cheap traps, it would generally be a good idea to just back out and join the next mass wave of people instead of trying to carry on by yourself. I tend to find the game might be easier to play with a smaller controlled group of people. When you're in a mass of players, the visual clutter issue mentioned in graphics becomes very apparent, and even though the game highlights your character from the rest by placing a white circle over you, the sheer amount of players on screen can cause you to lose track anyway, or get hit by stray projectiles hidden by the clutter of allied sprites and attacks. It's pretty easy to lose track of your other players too, as these players in the game will tend to be on a rush to complete the stage, darting through the areas without any regard for the people behind them, and leaving a lot of enemies alone, which can end up getting in cheap shots to the herd of players that are struggling to keep up. Not to mention that the community itself is inundated with very unpleasant people, who will endlessly mock players for getting killed by spamming the RIP and ha 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 emotes back to back, or yelling at them in chat just for playing the game. It really is one of those communities capable of being so toxic and unhelpful that it'll drive people away. Thankfully, since it is a free loot system, though items will rapidly decay, you don't have to worry about stealing someone else's items or having them steal them from you. But shockingly, this game still has a very FYGM attitude. Cooperative people do still exist, though, with players using the healing item or chest emote to announce either one of those drops, as well as waiting for players to catch up to the next area before they head on through, or sometimes even pointing out the secret areas to those who haven't come across them yet. It really seems to just vary greatly depending on when you're playing. While guilds exist in the game in the form of factions, earning your friends an invites a player tag, the price to form one is a staggering 50,000 EC. To put this in perspective, I've been playing since the beta, but putting a lot more time into the game recently and never spending a single red cent of my EC on the store upgrades, I still only gathered up around 6,000. If you're dedicated, go nuts, but in-game cash isn't exactly pouring out of these stages, so be prepared for the grind if you actually want to form your own faction. There isn't too much to talk about here, really only three major things. The current exchange rates will run for about 50 UC for $5. Purchasing in higher amounts will get you small bonuses to the amount received. The first are the real money hats that can be purchased for a rather paltry amount of 5 UC, roughly 50 cents a pop. But the major issue is that they're lost on death, making them completely pointless. The character artwork isn't of distinct enough quality, and you're definitely not distinguished enough from others of the same class to make this even worth it. The other two options are far more useful, one allowing you to store shells for future use, and letting you switch back to Spark mode in order to select a new one, while the other allows for extra storage space for gear in case you find some great items that you might want to save for a rainy day or a class change. The shell storage will cost you 95 UC, with a maximum of 4 shell storage, and the gear storage comes in at 40 per storage with a maximum of 8, meaning that these are rather pricey additions, and ultimately, if they're worth your money or not will be up to you and your dedication to this game. Mixed feelings all around on this game, really. When things are going well, I can have a blast. I love running with a large cooperative group, taking down the enemies, with each player using the advantages of their class to assist others and call out the locations of secrets and health drops. But when it gets bad, and finding yourself in a scattered group of speedrunners looking to leave everyone behind them to die, getting caught by the game's numerous cheap traps and dying to horrible spawn locations, impossible to see shots, or just getting taken down by a stray shot the very second you would have finished the escape countdown, can make me go from 0 to F this game within seconds. It's almost soul-crushing to work a character to a well-upgraded level, only to have them instantly die by a cheap shot or falling off that god-awful strand stage. While those who played alongside me were not enjoying this game, I kept finding myself wanting to get back into it. It's easy enough to drop into when you feel like playing, and since it doesn't take up much space on your PC or can be played in your browser, if you find yourself even remotely enjoying it at times, it won't hurt to leave it on your Steam list. Here's my final rating. This is a game that doesn't really let up with its challenge. The ever-present specter of permadeath will have most who play taking on each stage with the utmost caution, and if you're the type that sees a boss fight as a test of skill rather than the inevitable end-goal loot pinata, this game might be your speed. It's especially so for fans of the roguelike blends. If you're in the mood for constantly changing tile sets, and the threat of losing everything that you've just earned looming over each encounter, all for the chance to take out even more ridiculously powerful enemies by gathering loot and hoping for the best, and StarBreak offers up almost everything Realm of the Mad God did in a 2D Metroidvania-style package. In fact, being rooted in a browser game makes the entire download take seconds, and the game serves well as something to hop in and out of. Play it if you're the type of person looking to play something with a simple premise and easy controls and have that mood strike you every now and again. While I can't imagine any reason someone would want to keep spending real cash on barely noticeable cosmetics that you lose on death, the sting of losing your stuff can be dropped by buying extra storage crates. Whether you're preparing a backup wildfire or waiting to outfit an ironclad upon your Duskwing's inevitable demise, storage can take the sting out of having to start over. Of course, if you're really into how your shell is coming along and you're not willing to send it to the icy beyond just for a chance to change things up, buying a shell storage slot lets you swap characters on the fly without having to give up one to the void, and starting that grind process all over again. Do note that both options are relatively pricey, but those invested in the game probably won't have an issue parting with $5 to $10 a pop. In another shocking development in my conclusion that shouldn't come as a surprise to regulars of the show, the draw to play the game for one person is the exact reason another would avoid it, and permadeath in an MMO setting is a rare and very polarizing sight. For every person who sees worrying about losing everything that they've earned as a motivator, there's another who just realized that the character they spent over 5 hours boosting to Mark IV was eaten by the worm boss the minute they spawned in and entered their laptop into the next skeet shooting competition. And those cheap shots are everywhere. Be it hidden visual clutter, sudden one-hit kills, or just really bad luck with health drops, your character is going to die, and there's plenty of times that you won't feel like it's remotely your fault. There's other times where every loot chest that you'll open will contain fantastic and amazing gear for a shell you still haven't unlocked. That can frustrate many a player to no end. There's only so many times you can carefully plan out every move, only to have a cloaked stray bullet that sailed past your group strike you in just the right place to send you tumbling into the abyss and start the whole process anew. Starting the whole process anew might just be the worst part. There's times where you'll feel like you're never progressing in the game. Sure, you'll learn the stages and gain the insight to know where to go and how to avoid certain attacks, but unless you find an exact copy of your gear to store, you're starting everything over again at newbie status, with Fire Force grinds to get you back up to a halfway decent power level. I may really like the Fire Force song, but there's only so many times you can run that stage until you wonder why you're bothering to play it at all. If you're going to play StarBreak, prepare to do it all over again. Over and over. Next time, I'm looking into the type of game that I haven't played in a while and kinda snuck up on me, so I have no idea what to expect. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the end of the credits again. Click on the left window, it'll take you to the last video on Riders of Icarus, which is kinda like a very generic game combined with some good ideas that don't really work for some people. I don't know. Polarizing, you know, like a lot of things I do. Clicking on the right window, you can see the last time I actually looked at StarBreak in a browser-based. I actually didn't think I was going to go with this full, but I kinda always felt I should have. You can see what's changed, you know, barely by looking at that video. Next month I'm going to be moving to 1 episode a month again and see if I can do a little bit more focus on some side content. And with that will come a little bit of changes to the Patreon. Shouldn't affect anybody who's currently subbed, but new people might want to take a look. I don't know, I think I'll get that page changed up. Maybe, I don't know, after this video goes live. I gotta fix some stuff anyway. And once again, a big thanks to Slipstream, who once again would like you to check out his website at notokensrequired.com, as well as his Twitch stream at twitch.tv/notokensrequired.